with the stick, yeah. She said she wanna be up on my team, but she can't love me, yeah. Really, she don't want a man, she want a gummy bear. My check 1 2 1 2. My brothers, my brethren, was happening with you. We're back with another one on the Ism series. Now we're just gonna dive straight into this. There is this doctrine that's going around. I've had a few Christian brothers, send this to me. And let me do a quick disclaimer. I wouldn't classify myself as a Christian. I wouldn't classify myself as really anything. I am a believer of the Most High Yah. We keep the statutes and the commandments. We end our prayers in the name of Yahshua HaMashiach, the one begotten Son who came for the lost tribes, the scattered tribes. But now we send out the message, the Basara, to all nations in order to be fishers of men. So anyhow, my Christian counterpart sent me this clip, and it is this doctrine that states that there's to be one man, one woman marriage in the Bible, and that they are never to divorce for any reason, even if the woman leaves and goes out and sleeps with another man. They always to make it work. And they used the Bible to try to justify this, and they wanted me to kind of clarify and get my tidbit. And first off, what I want to tell y'all is that anything biblical is not my tidbit. We're going to keep that to the Most High. But I will give you my ism standpoint of it. And so let's get into that. First off, if anybody's telling you that the Bible speaks of monogamy only when dealing with marriage, they ain't read their Bibles. Period. The Most High Yah had more than one wife. He had Israel and he had Judah. The Most High Yah himself was a divorcee. He divorced Israel and he divorced Judah. See, these church pastors won't ever tell you that. It doesn't go with the doctrine. You get into Romans chapter 7 verse 1 through 2. It says, "Or do you not know, brethren, for I speak to those who know the law." And I'm going to stop there before I keep reading. When you read these verses, when you read these books, these epistles, specifically from Paul, you always have to look at who he's addressing. So now, even in the book of Romans, he's saying, I'm speaking to those who know the law. A lot of issues with the Christian churches is that while they may have a lot of spirit, they don't have the knowledge of the law. Therefore, how could they teach, preach, or even expound on with it? The law being the first 5 books of Moses, which they keep, they read over, but they don't actually think it has any relevancy today or can influence doctrine or uprightness or correction. So a lot of them have a feel-good doctrine that if it feels good, if it's socially accepted, if it's traditionally viewed and approved, then we'll keep it. Completely disregarding the first 5 books, known as the law. So if a person is speaking to you from a lawful standpoint, but does not know the law, already you run into issues. But continuing, it says that the law has dominion over a man as long as he lives. And then continuing in verse 2, it says, "For the woman who has a husband is bound by the law to her husband as long as he lives." Now in verse 1, we're talking about the man speaking to the men who know the law. And then in verse 2, we shift over quite quickly to the women or the woman who is married to that man. And let me state here, if the state of Texas, the state of Georgia, the state of Florida, the state of Louisiana, the state of any of was the one who said, "I hereby pronounce by the powers invested in me, bling, 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 man and wife," please understand, the Most High had nothing to do with that. That was the laws of this wicked, abominable land, not according to y'all's laws. That, again, most churches really don't adhere by anyway. So if you're trying to hold someone accountable by a law that is from a different lawgiver, it does not apply. Continuing in that same verse, it says, "But if the husband dies, she is released from the law of her husband." Now we understand this to mean that when a woman was married, there was no way or reason why she would have been packing her things, headed about the house of her husband's for anything other than death. But I do want to ask a question though. Can we see any instance in the Bible where wives were being divorced when there wasn't death in the plea? Can we see that? And if so, I want to answer the question, does Yah, or who they say God, does God hate divorce? Or is that a gross misinterpretation of the word in Malachi? In Malachi, the Most High is not saying he hates divorce. He's saying he hates the putting away of. Speaking to the men, there were men during that period who were dealing treacherously with women who had done them no error. There was no uncleanliness found in her. Yet these men, for whatever reason, the hardness of men's hearts, which Moses speaks on, just wouldn't allow them to be the husband, the biblical husband, to faithfully do the duties spoken of. They were therefore unfaithful to their wives. Not because these men were not monogamous, but because they didn't faithfully adhere to the objectives which a husband is to do. And that's to love their wives as Yahshua loved the church. And we can read about what love is in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the starters. But again, there was no uncleanness found in these women, these wives, yet the men dealt treacherously with them. And if you've ever been a woman, or most of our listeners may not be women, but if there are some women, or maybe some of you men here, have ever been in a situation where you no longer wanted to deal with the woman, but she was there. And hopefully this was not the case, but let's just say that this woman was perfect unto you. She didn't speak out of turn. She didn't speak with you with malice. She wasn't rebellious. She wasn't disobedient. She wasn't sexually immoral. She didn't lie to you. She did her part as your partner from your youth, as the Bible says in Malachi. But you still deal treacherously with her. This is why Moses allowed for divorce. Because in that situation, in those situations, it'd be better for the woman to be divorced than to be in a situation where not only does the man not want her, but the biggest part is that he deals treacherously with her. And you could use your imagination to imagine what she may have been going through. You go to Deuteronomy chapter 24. Let's read. It says, when a man have taken a wife and married her, and it comes to pass that she finds no favor in his eyes, because he have found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorcement and give it to her in her hand and send her out of the house. When she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and give it into her hand, and send her out of the house, his house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be his wife, her former husband would send her away, may not take her again to be his wife. After that she is defiled, for that is an abomination before the Most High. I've met some men who, see that when that woman left your house, you couldn't take her back. And I say, bro, keep digging, because the women you entertain, they may already fit this bill. Like I asked in the previous video, were you her first husband? Is he dead? These women in this land, I don't care if they got they hind parts out. I don't care if they in a job. Most of them have been passed around like a beach ball, bouncing from house to house, situation to situation, husband to husband. Like Yahshua told the woman at the well, and ain't none of them your husband. So at that point, I'll be honest with you, as a man in this country, it's like, check it out. For us knowing the law, a lot of it from the jump is starting off on the wrong foot. Again, back to what I was saying, it's easier for us men to be biblical men than for these women to be biblical women entering into biblical situations. But here's the thing though, like I say, when that man found uncleanliness in her, he was to send her away. He wasn't dead, and here we read that she was free to marry another. So again, going back to the original question, do we see divorce happening when the husband is not dead? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Is it a good thing? No. Could it be the lesser of the two evils? Yeah. The other evil being that she remains there, that she stays there, though he clearly has seen what he did not want to see in her, and now he's finding someone to deal with it, and it may be in unwholesome ways. That's the bigger of the evil. The lesser is just to get her on up out of there. This situation ain't gonna work for you, la mama. And therein lies another core issue. These are people speaking about a segment of the Bible they read, never truly knowing nor having the law to build precept upon precept. So they'll tell you that a man having more than one wife is committing adultery. However, not knowing that the law states, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. And let me ask you this, who had wives, the men or the women? It was the man. Therefore, adultery is only determined by the status of a woman. A single woman cannot commit adultery because she's not married or betrothed. But unless you knew the law, you wouldn't have known that. Does not mean that she can't be a whore. This doesn't mean that she can commit adultery as a single woman. Somebody may retort, but what if the man lays with the woman? Well, if you knew the law, you'd know what it says. The book talks about that man, shall he lay with her, is to be honorable and do what he's supposed to do by her, providing the two things that make us men, providence and protection. All these things culminate to what's known as a covering. That woman has to be pleased to dwell there, because you can provide her the covering you want. If she don't like it, she'd rather stand in the rain. Abraham, the father of the faith, had a wife and a concubine, but a lot of teachers don't want to talk about that. We can go to Jacob, the progenitor, the OG of the 12 tribes, and know that there was 4 women involved in that consummation of genealogy. But again, they like to just kind of drift over that part as well. You go to Moses, who was the custodian of the law, and he has 3 wives. Then you go to David, a man's after Yah's own heart. And I believe he had, 18 women, wives, concubines, however you want to classify them. Now, see, these same church leaders won't even tell you that the Most High Yah himself is a divorcee. Again, if divorce was impossible, there wouldn't be provisions made for it in Deuteronomy chapter 24. But when you go to Jeremiah, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 8, it says, "And I saw when for all the causes whereby backsliding Israel committed adultery, I had put her away and given her a bill of divorce." That's the first divorce. It says, "Yet her treacherous sister Judah feared not, but went and played the harlot also." And you could continue to read that chapter to find out what happened to Judah. But if you see what happened to the other sister, you should know how this ends. And just so you know, Yah had always been married to 2. It was never just one. He always considered the nation as 2, Israel and Judah, even back in Egypt. But again, your church leaders not knowing the law or what it really says, the prophets thereof, could never really explain that to you. But let me. In Ezekiel chapter 23, it says, "And the word of the Lord came to me, son of man, there were 2 women, daughters of the same mother. They became prostitutes in Egypt, engaging in prostitution from their youth in that land. Their breasts were fondled and their virgin bosoms caressed." It says the older was named Oholah, and her sister was Oholibah. They were mine and gave birth to sons and daughters. And who are these 2 women? It tells us Oholah is Samaria and Oholibah is Jerusalem. This is Judah and Israel. So even back in Egypt, they were still playing the harlot, considered to be 2, married to 1, and both got divorced. How do we know the prostitution started in Egypt? If you go down to verse 8, it says she did not give up the prostitution she began in Egypt. I'm going to need y'all to go and open that word and read it. Continuing in verse 8, it says, "When during her youth, men slept with her, caressed her virgin bosom, and poured out their lust on her." And see, man, that's what we're dealing with today. We're dealing with women who from an early age done been turned on and turned out. They done had men touch them, they done had family members touch them, they done had all types of people touch them. They burning with desire by the time they get with you. Now the word says that if you're burning with desire, take it to your husband and let him burn you up. But some of these vessels, some of these women, my fellow brethren, may be too far gone. This was an issue back then. You think things have gotten better? No. We have whole cities that are called sin cities. Ain't nothing new up under the sun, my fellow brethren. I ain't trying to scare you, I'm trying to prepare you. So if what these pastors say is true, that the Most High Yah hates divorce, why is he himself getting divorced? Again, it's not that he hates divorce, he hates the putting away of, especially when you're doing so treacherously with the woman who has done you no wrong, you found no uncleanliness in. You got some women who listen to Pastor Porkchop at church and they come home and do what they want to do. They entertain men at their job, they got work husbands, and they come home and tell their husband, "You can't divorce me." Yeah. I'm gonna need y'all men to go read that word. Now, if you're looking for a verse that may govern her movement, You can go to Ecclesiastes 23, verse 22. It says, "Thus shall it go also with the wife that leaveth her husband." So off the top, we know exactly what party and what partner we're speaking on. This is the wife leaving her husband and bringing in an heir by another. Now you got a wife who left her man and wouldn't had a baby. Let's say she wouldn't had a hot girl summer and it lasted for a hot girl second, and now she 9 months later got a hot little baby. It says, "For first she have disobeyed the law of the Most High." So that's the first one she offends. When these women get to talking about we want control in the entire nine because we offended by they movement or whatever the case may be, the first one you not 9 times out of 10 will offend is the Most High. When we men talk about a woman being disobedient to a man, 9 times out of 10, if you are disobedient to a biblical man, you were disobedient to the Most High first. If you were rebellious to a biblical man, then you were probably rebellious and or being rebellious to the Most High first. Alright? And then secondly, it says she has trespassed against her own husband. So now you guys get the hierarchy here. When dealing with the biblical man, there's really no way to offend him without first offending the Most High. There's no way to disobey him without disobeying first the Most High. There's no way to respect him first without first respecting the Most High. Okay, but let's keep going. It says, "And thirdly, she hath played the whore in adultery and brought the children by another man." What a lot of people, and I'm going to stop there, what a lot of churches try to do is make this verse apply to men. We men have our rules, governing statutes, and hallmarks as to how we are supposed to walk and deal with our counterparts. But you can't take what was meant and said for the woman and make it for the man. Right? See, a woman cannot go in and out like a man. You were meant to be with one. You can't go in and out like a man can. You cannot traverse like a man can. You're not a man. You have your own guidelines, your own penalties, your own borders, and so forth. What I see a lot of modern day churches will do is will try to blend all of it and say the man can't do, the women can't do, thou shalt not divorce, and if you do, no matter what she does, you take her back. Or that ain't how that works, my brothers. If your woman classifies and fits any of these classifications that we've been lightly discussing, I can tell you right now, bro, like, you are free. You are free. Because see, a lot of women today will hold you to standards that they don't hold themselves to, and that's okay. We have different roles, but the big part is that she will remember everything that you're supposed to do, all while maybe negating some of the things or all the things that she's supposed to do. While she'll want you to traditionally be a husband and a protector and provider, she may want some leniency or maybe be a little lackadaisical when it comes to her being a biblical traditional woman and a wife. And again, I ask, who wins and who loses in that situation? Listen, bro, I made this video to let y'all brothers know that y'all does not hate the boss. The Bible is wrought with it. He hates the putting away of. And for the women, please understand that if you are listening, again, this is mostly geared for us men, but I'm sure some of you guys will be listening. If you feel like you're being done treacherously, let me ask you, did you offend that man? Did you disrespect that man? Did you rebel against that man? Did you give him any reason to find any uncleanliness in you? And if the answer is yes, then you know that you couldn't have done that. You couldn't have offended him and transgressed him without first transgressing the one who he's made in the image of. Because he's the second and the Heavenly Father is the first. Brothers, I hope and pray that this lesson has been edifying. Until the next episode, Selah. With the stick, yeah. She said she wanna be up on my team, but she can't love me, yeah. Really, she don't want a man, she want a gummy bear.